Howdy folks, I hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to Elite Dangerous with the mighty Jingles. So, after the last episode, where I was embarking on the very first jump of my 10,000 light year trip to the supermassive black hole at the galactic core, where I was lining up for an assisted jet cone boost via a neutron star, and seconds after entering the neutron star's jet cone, some utter bastard decided to interdict me, resulting in both of us being dumped into real space in the extremely hazardous neutron star jet cone environment, which resulted in a very definite but extremely slow death for both of us. So I'm back, I'm having another go, and this time I'm making damn sure that I'm alone before I commence the jump. Now, one of the benefits of doing a long distance trip when you're this close to the galactic core is, well, I say close, I mean I'm still 10,000 light years out, but in space close is a relative term. We're certainly a lot closer to the core than we are to the rim. If you were in any doubt of that, all you have to do is look out the window. I mean, just look at how densely packed the stars are out here. By contrast, this is what the same view looks like back in the bubble. And the differences are not just visual, they're also quite practical. If you're taking advantage of the jet cone boost effect from neutron stars to boost the effective range of your frameshift jump drive, because if the stars in general are packed more closely together, that means that the neutron stars are also packed much more closely together. So there's a significantly bigger chance that when you do plot a route from one neutron star, there's going to be another neutron star within the jump range. So the chances of you getting to chain multiple neutron star jumps together are very good out here, which can significantly cut down on the travel time. My journey out here to Colonia in the first place was 22,000 light years, and from Colonia to galactic core is just over 10,000 light years, so roughly half the distance. So you'd imagine it should take you half the time. In real terms, a day and a half compared to the 3 days that it took me to get out to Colonia. In practice, it's going to take significantly less than that because of the huge savings that I'm going to be able to make by doing things like this. Jumping from one neutron star to another, and another, and in some cases, another and another. That was a 184 light year jump, something that would normally have taken me 5 or 6 jumps to accomplish. And now we're going to do it again. Only this time it's going to be a 191 light year jump. So we'll have done more than 350 light years in 2 jumps. Actually, we're going to do more than that because there's another neutron star waiting for me at the end of this jump as well. There we go, frameshift drive supercharged. We're just going to boost up to get out of the jet cone, regain control of the ship, point it in the right direction. 191 light years away. The proof of the pudding here, of course, is in how many jumps overall it's going to take me to reach my destination. From Colonia to Sagittarius A, it's about 142 jumps for over 10,000 light years. The 22,000 light year journey from the Jameson Memorial Starport in the Shinrata Desra system back in the bubble to Colonia was more than 500 jumps. So double the distance from the bubble to Colonia compared to Colonia to the galactic core, but it took more than 3 times as many jumps. In practice, what that means is that this journey of half the distance is going to take a lot less than half the time. You might expect it to have taken a day and a half, because it took me 3 days to get to Colonia. In effect, it actually only took about a day, and it would have taken less than a day if I hadn't stopped to do a bit of sightseeing along the way. And because I did take the time out here to stop and sniff the coffee occasionally, I saw a whole bunch of things that I probably wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't taken the time to do so. I'm here in some system whose name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. Check out this brown dwarf star. Yeah, that's a star with a planetary ring system. I mean, I say it's a star. It is technically a star, it's a brown dwarf, but a brown dwarf is just a gas giant that doesn't know the way to the salad bar. But still, it's a star with a ring system, something I have never seen before. And something which definitely warrants a closer look. And there it is. I'd never really entertained the idea of a star having a ring system before, but I suppose it makes sense. I mean, very young stars will have ring systems as they're in the process of forming their own planetary systems. And the brown dwarf there is a very young star. It's only 850 million years old, so it's not as old as the Earth. Just to put this into perspective for you, 850 million years ago was a time known as the Neoproterozoic period, which featured an age known as the Cryogenian, I believe is how you pronounce it, which is basically the most severe ice age that Earth has ever known. The ice sheets met at the equator and the entire planet was a snowball. Overnight, the bottom fell right out of the barbecue market, but on the other hand, thermal blankets suddenly started doing extremely well. So, yeah. I mean, if a star's as young as 850 million years, you shouldn't be too surprised to see that it does actually have a ring system, and yet a star with a ring system has been discovered only 145 light years from Earth. And it's a white dwarf, which are amongst the oldest stars in the galaxy. This one, located in the Triangulum constellation, is about 3 billion years old, and yet it still has a ring system, which is, well, kind of weird, and is forcing astrophysicists to reconsider what they thought they knew about how planetary systems evolve. And it was discovered by a volunteer. A guy who volunteers for NASA. I'm going to scan this ring system and see if there's anything interesting here. And that would appear to be no. So we're not going to be mining the rings around this particular brown dwarf star. That's kind of disappointing. Oh well, never mind. I mean, I wouldn't be doing it anyway. I'm in my Asp Explorer. I don't have any mining gear on it. But it would be cool to find, oh, I don't know, void opal or low temperature diamond hotspots in the ring system around a star. That would be a first. It's not the only interesting thing in this system. I also found a planet with an equally impressive ring system that had its surface covered in biological and geological hotspots. So, since I mean, there are two schools of thought on how you should set up a ship for long distance travel, with one school leaning towards the strip it down of absolutely everything that isn't 100% necessary for maximum possible jump range and get there as quickly as possible, or the school that I belong to, which insists that if you're going on the journey, you may as well enjoy the sights along the way. So I always carry a planetary vehicle hangar with at least one scarab, so I can, you know, get out and have a look around if I find anything interesting to investigate along the way. And this is one of the things that I found that I thought might be interesting to investigate along the way. And I have just discovered rubium bioluminescent anemones. I don't know what those are either, don't worry. You're not the only one. But it's a thing that I hadn't seen before. It's a thing that I hadn't seen before anywhere. Not just all the way out here. I'd never seen anything like this out in the bubble. And if I had my ship stripped down for maximum possible jump range, I wouldn't have been able to make discoveries or enjoy views like this. Shortly afterwards, in another planetoid in a system along the way, I found these sulfur dioxide gas vents. It probably says a lot about my hectic social schedule that I'm getting so excited about finding sulfur dioxide gas vents. You can probably tell that I haven't been getting out much in the last couple of months. But there's a practical purpose to this as well, because these biological and geological hotspots are jam-packed full of extremely valuable raw engineering materials. These sulfur dioxide gas vents, for example, were a particularly lucrative source of raw engineering materials like manganese in particular, and also things like zinc, selenium and ruthenium. Stuff that's extremely rare and extremely valuable when it comes to engineering your ship, which is great news because, well, now I've pretty much unlocked all of the engineers that I actually need. Do you remember how I said that the neutron stars are a lot more closely packed together, as are all of the stars when you get this close to galactic centre? Let me just give you a slightly more practical example of exactly what that means. Right now, I am 1655 light years away from galactic centre, and my ship's computer is telling me I can do that in 18 jumps, which means that that's an average of just under 92 light years per jump. But there's no ship in the game that can do 92 light years in a jump. Not without some help. I think the record was achieved by somebody in an Anaconda who stripped it down of everything that wasn't absolutely necessary. I mean, they even threw out the coffee maker and engineered the shit out of everything that he kept on the ship and managed to get a jump range of something like 84.2 light years. Which is impressive, but the only thing that that ship could do was jump. That was it. It couldn't do anything else. I certainly haven't gone down that route. But when you're this close to the galactic core, the neutron stars are packed so close together that you just don't need to. So remember, 1,655 light years away from galactic center. Yeah? You ready? Let's get this jump drive supercharged. Nice and easy. Slip into the jet cone. Nice and slow so I don't slip out the other side before my frameshift drive has been supercharged. And I actually did exactly that. Okay, let's try that again. Here we go. Come on, there we go. Frameshift drive supercharged. Okay, throttle up, get out of the jet cone so I can regain control of the ship. Point it in the direction of the next star, which is nearly 200 light years away. Trigger the jump drive. Strap in, sit back. 1,655 light years to go. Here's jump number 1. And we're off. Give it a couple of seconds, we should be arriving at our next stop, which, I'm sure you've already guessed, is another neutron star. Repeat the process. Second jump, another 191 light years. Doing this, by the way, does damage your engine, so you will need an automated field maintenance unit in order to conduct repairs and ensure that your frameshift drive doesn't malfunction while you're scooping one of those neutron star jet cones. And here is the third stop along the route. Yes, it's another neutron star. Repeat the process. A third time. And a fourth time. And a fifth time. Until eventually you run out of neutron stars within range. You arrive at your fueling stop, and after a mere 6 jumps you've travelled more than 1,000 light years, and you're just over 500 light years away from the Sagittarius A supermassive black hole at the centre of the galaxy. And 500 light years is nothing. Well, 500 light years is nothing for me now. I'm going to do 500 light years in a couple of hours now. In fact, I just did over 1,000 light years in about 10 minutes, but back when I started this engineering grind, do you remember when I had to travel more than 500 light years away from my career start point in order to unlock access to a certain engineer? Oh, the bitching and the whining. 500 light years? Nobody's travelled that far, I said. In fact, it pissed me off so much that I just couldn't do the return trip. I thought, I'm not doing that again, and I just suicided and crashed the ship and took the rebuy option back at Shinra to Desra rather than do a mere 500 light year return trip. Oh, how times change. But well, that's why I'm doing the engineering grind. Now 500 light years is pretty much nothing. It's a far cry from back when I first started doing this. Since we're on the galactic map anyway, there we go. I'm now 25,000 light years away from the bubble. Let me just... there we go, Beagle Point. This is the real navigating challenge. Beagle Point. If you thought Galactic Center was far away, I'm at Galactic Center, 25,000 light years away from home, and Beagle Point is nearly 40,000 light years further on. That's the far side of the galaxy. I will get there one day, and probably be crushingly disappointed by the lack of things to see when I get there. There may be a tourist beacon. I don't know. I'm sure it's not going to be worth it. But that's a trip that I have. It's on the to-do list. But for now, I have an urgent date with a supermassive black hole a little over 500 light years away. And right now, it's my next jump. This is it. Ooh, are you excited? Just curious, how many of you watching this have actually seen Sagittarius A before? I mean, even if you've never flown there yourself in the game, there are certainly going to be plenty of YouTube videos up, and right now there's one more. But here it comes. This is the last leg. Complete this jump, and that's another one ticked off the bucket list. Any second now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Sagittarius A star, the supermassive black hole at the centre of the galaxy, we have arrived, and there it is. We are holding steady at a distance of 65 light seconds, which is 0.13 astronomical units, and an astronomical unit is the average distance from the Earth to the Sun, so just over a tenth of the distance from the Earth to the Sun. It has a diameter of 60 million kilometers, which makes it 15 times the size of the Sun, but a mass 516,000 times the mass of the Sun. To put this into perspective, something that size, if it were at the centre of our solar system where Sol would be, its event horizon would be outside the orbit of Mercury. The curious thing about Sagittarius A is its relatively low mass for its extreme size. I mean, it's 15 times the size of the Sun, and yes, it masses 516,000 times the mass of the Sun, but that's way less than you'd expect. I mean, this isn't the first black hole that I've seen. There was a relatively tiny black hole in the Maya system, you might recall. The Maya black hole isn't even a 10,000th of 1% of the size of the Sun. It's visually spectacular, but it's absolutely tiny. You could fit it inside the 5 boroughs of New York. But it masses more than twice the mass of the Sun. Sagittarius A is 15 times the size of the Sun, but only masses 516,000 times as much. Which, if you think about it, is kind of weird. Now, I did all of this, just to put this into some sort of time perspective for you, at more or less exactly the same time that fleet carriers were being introduced into the game. On the very same weekend, in fact, so it's probably no great surprise that by the time I arrived at Sagittarius A, I found that a couple of fleet carriers had beaten me to it. Which isn't really surprising. These things have a jump range of 500 light years. You give people that kind of freedom, they're going to want to see some shit. But this has turned out to be very, very useful for me, because I was anticipating having to fly all the way back to Colonia in order to trade in all of the navigational data that I'd accumulated on the way out here, all of that discovery data. But fleet carriers can have cartographic officers on board. So if this one has that service, I can sell off all of my nav data. Because I've basically done everything that I wanted to do coming out here to Colonia. I've earned grade 5 access with all of the engineers that I wanted to see out here. I've seen the centre of the galaxy now. I've done what they did in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. I didn't find God, but well then again, technically speaking, neither did they. And now I need to go home. The thing is, home is 25,000 light years away. Now I could hitch a ride on a carrier, assuming I could find one that was heading that way, but I don't have time for that. I also don't have time for flying 25,000 light years. Luckily, there is an alternative, which is why it's particularly lucky that I did manage to find one of these player carriers out here at Sagittarius A, because I can sell all of my navigational data here. That's the only thing that I can't really take with me. Well, it's the only thing that I can't take with me when I do what it is that I'm going to do. But the fact that carriers had just been introduced the very weekend that I did this, and a couple of those carriers had made the journey out to Sagittarius A and were basically already here waiting for me, meant that I could still make the money from the navigational data that I've accumulated on the trip out here to the galactic core. What are you talking about, Jingles? Stick with me, all will become clear. Remember, if you lose your ship, you lose any cargo that was on the ship, but, well, this ship's not carrying any cargo anyway. You don't lose your engineering materials, so that's good. But you do also lose all of your navigational data if you haven't managed to sell it at a cartographics office, which is why I'm selling it all at the very conveniently located cartographics office on this very conveniently located fleet carrier. Next, I'm going to strip this ASP Explorer of anything valuable and sell it off at the shipyard located on board this extremely conveniently located fleet carrier. Then I flew the ship straight into the nearest supermassive black hole. Or at least I tried to. But you just can't get close enough to do any actual damage to the ship. I wanted to end it all by flying into the event horizon, but you hit the exclusion zone, and while it's technically possible at sublight speeds, it would take a year. So instead, I just triggered the self-destruct. How's blowing your ship up going to get you home, Jingles? Well, remember, there are two possible outcomes when you lose a ship. The first is that you pay an insurance fee and you basically rebuy the ship that you just lost for substantially less than the going rate. And you respawn in your old ship in the last station where you docked, which in this case would be the fleet carrier, just a couple of light seconds away from this supermassive black hole where I sold all of the navigational data. But that's no good, that doesn't get me home. So the other option, since I can't actually fly this thing into the black hole, I'm stopped well short of the event horizon, is to trigger the self-destruct with a plaintive cry of goodbye cruel world, and then as soon as I get the choice, you pick option number 2. You see, there's my first option, respawn in my ASP Explorer for only a couple of 100,000 credits, but back at the fleet carrier at galactic core. Or I can go for the other option, which is completely free, although first I'm going to sell my stored Crate Mark II, which is currently docked at Jacques Station in the Colonia system, and I'm probably not going to be back there anytime soon, so I'll sell that off. And that will put me back up to about 134 million credits, get rid of that, and then I'll pick the other option, which is a free Sidewinder in the Shinrata Desra system, 25,000 light years away, back in the bubble. So it took me 3 days to do the 22,000 light year journey from the bubble to Colonia, another day to do the 10,000 light year journey from Colonia to Sagittarius A, and about 3 seconds to do the Sidewinder shuffle from Galactic Center all the way back here, 25,000 light years away at the Shinrata Desra system and the Jameson Memorial Orbital Starport. Now that's efficiency for you. That's quite enough travelling for today. I think I'm done. I hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.